Yo, 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 yo.
Hello, hello, hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm excellent. We can do video if you want or not. Doesn't matter to me.
Let's do, if I was outside, I would say let's do video, but I've had to curtail that plan because there's too many noises happening out there at the moment.
Got it. Cool. I'll kill my video so we have better bandwidth then. So where shall we dive in?
Oh goodness. What's in the deep end of the pool?
Well, the difference between the deep end and the shallow end seems to only have to do with pressure. At least that's what I learned in scuba diver school.
That's interesting. I've always had a fear of deep water, like when swimming. And
Scuba's for you.
but that's interesting that you said that, because if I think of it, what's the difference between shallow water and deep water? You can feel the bottom, I guess.
Right.
If you are able to swim, it's the thought of not touching bottom or not being able to reach the side of the pool. Yeah, yeah. That's cool. So DDD, dream driven day, I enjoyed that a lot. Still enjoying it. Uh, Manifesting mastery, in the first week or so, it's you talk about creating wiggle room, and I feel like DDD is more about playing with spaciousness.
Ooh. I love hearing your experiences of it because mine are always different. Period.
Well, and I would assume that every time uh, you go through it with a new group, each of those experiences is a different experience too, with different themes.
Totally. I think the space thing's universal because it's like discovering the space of you, the expansiveness of you, the expandingness of you.
Totally.
I love that we claim that the universe is expanding, and yet most humans do their best to contract, and we're not contracting based beings, from what I can tell.
Huh.
At least not big time. There's little contractions; they're always fun, you know. But
And why do you suppose that a lot of people end up contracting if that's not our nature?
From what I can tell, it all comes down to identifying with the physical, whether it's
Mhm.
identifying with the car you want or your physical body or your physical history. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, fuck, I'm contracting into a very specific lunch today. You know, otherwise it would be. We really don't have buffets here in Australia like they do in America. I can't remember much about Canada when I was there. But like, man,
Oh,
you can't throw a football without hitting an Asian buffet in America.
oh, I've visited my share of buffets for sure.
Yeah.
Not so much now with COVID happening. There's not too many buffets open in the on.
I, sus- I suspect the industry is going to change big time.
Yeah, I think so too.
Ah,
No, I the whole that the whole contraction versus expanding, that's, yeah. Because contracting, if you're contracting, you're robbing yourself of everything. You're going back to a place, something familiar, even though it might not be something you enjoy.
So if I contract into a yummy lunch, oh my God, it's going to be delicious. You have to watch the video.
That's true.
But so I contract into this is what lunch is. But if it's not an expansive experience, then that masculine feminine's out of whack.
Mm.
And, what was that? Attitude 3, I think.
Yeah.
So I love contracting into loving teacher. I love contracting into loving husband. But if the experience isn't expansive while I'm there,
Yeah. No, that's wild. That's there are times to contract and times to expand. I suppose that the opposite is true too. There's some expansive experiences that can have a contractive quality, perhaps.
I did an interview with Brian Scott last week or the week before, and we talked about the promise. And one of the things that I notice is a lot of people have had expansive experiences, but they don't discover that they're expansive. So they remember the experience that happened. What the fuck is that? Let's make this go. All right, gone. Yeah, and it's gosh, it's almost like they worship the day that it happened or the night that it happened, versus you're happening. You're the verb.
Yeah, that's kind of like having a good run, going for a great run, as opposed to being the runner.
Yep.
Like enjoying that experience. I'm just putting those in, reframing that into terms to apply to myself. Yeah, that's, if we fixate on any experience, whether positive or negative, then we're identifying with that event as opposed to the one that, like you say, the expansion, the person or the beingness behind that event. It's funny how we can, and I've done this myself, become addicted to certain events or certain traumas, and on the flip side, become addicted to, those kind of experiences, those great experiences, the mountaintop, right?
That's exactly. I love in the fable Jumping Mouse that we explore that at the end of the thing, he just didn't stay on the mountain. It wasn't the mouse made it to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, those are the natural sort of ebb and flow experiences, but that's not, we can't stay there. I mean, it's, life is designed in a way that we don't stay there, but there's something.
So do you know what the third place is?
Is it not the sky?
The third place is Starbucks.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, the third place. Yes, I used to work for Starbucks. The third place,
Yes.
100%. I'm with you now.
So the first place is home, the second place is work, the third place is Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they built their model on that, because it's like the first place is we're of the world. The second thing is we have a peak experience. The third place is discovering, the way I put it, is that you're God having the adventure of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need for the peak experience because you're always peeking under the hood.
Ah. Yeah. That's where the juice is. Huh. And I suppose I'm imagining that if we keep on peeking under the hood, so to speak, that's exactly, we keep on noticing, then that actually perpetuates that experience, brings it, well, and that is, brings that back to Dream Driven Day. That's what that's all about. You know, being part of the group, you see everyone's wins, you see frustrations, but you also see wins, and then frustrations that turn to wins with aha moments. But it's all about you keep on bringing us back, and then we all encourage each other to come back to, you know, make it about yourself. Keep on diving in, keep on looking, keep on playing, and seeing what's really happening, right?
I so love smiling. You're just sitting here. I'm enjoying your exploration. A little bit ago, God was grumpy here.
why, why was God grumpy?
Who the fuck knows? We could blame some reasons, but it's like, look at God be grumpy. Like, Victoria, for the most part, didn't bite. Like, right, whatever. Let's go.
It's funny how those clouds come in sometimes, right? I kind of, the image that comes through is sometimes in my forgetfulness, you know, it's like a cloud that has kind of hidden me from myself, and it takes something, you know, so often it's something funny, or I get frustrated to the point where I start laughing because I realize what's going on. And I can't help but remove the cloud, and it's usually something comedic that removes that for me.
Do you fly above it as well?
Oh. Yeah, fly above it and around it to check out that cloud.
I like how different clouds are at different elevations, and that, because it's not just a one-time gig.
No. No. And there's different kinds of clouds.
Yes.
You've got the light, airy, fluffy ones, and sometimes they block the sun for a moment or two, and then you've got the overcasts, you know, I don't know the scientific technical name, but you know, the overcast, and it covers the whole sky for a day or two or more, and it's
And the sun's always there, and so
and the
is
sun. Definitely. You know, I lived for probably the first 20-25 years of my life felt like it was constant cloud cover. And maybe not constant, but more often than not.
Yep.
And it's interesting how the more exploring, the more I started to look outward and also look inward, that the clouds began to dissipate and more. And it's not often now that I have a day full of clouds. There's the odd thunderstorm, right? But not usually. I don't usually have those days where it's just jam-packed gray, if that makes any sense. Speaking in
Totally.
metaphors, of course.
Hey, yeah, yeah. Well, so we can claim it's a metaphor, but low testosterone actually causes men to see less colors. So if and so someone who's depressed will tend to have low testosterone, and the world will actually be grayer.
Wow.
How fucking wild is that?
That is pretty wild.
When I worked in the nursing home, I'd get the guys all wound up by getting them to talk about the war. Doesn't matter which war it was, right? And sure enough, these 85-year-old guys would suddenly have the strength of a 40-year-old and the vigor. And you could just tell they were pumping testosterone back into their bloodstreams, and their eyes would light up, and there'd be more color in their skin. And it's like, why doesn't anyone notice this? Like, the human being that's mucking around here? Wow.
Totally. There was a study done recently. I watched a video about it, and they did something similar to that. And for a day, they got a lot of folks that were in the seniors' home, and they basically got them to dress like they did when they were in their 20s.
Yes.
And they had activities, of course, sort of modified, but dancing and other things that they would have done back in their 20s. They played music from when they were in their 20s, and they did blood work before and after, and the blood work showed that their biological age had reversed.
Yep.
Crazy, very crazy. But they were enjoying themselves. They were entering into a state of youthfulness, right?
I love that Neville says memory is imagination. And God, if all we have to do is remember youth.
Yeah. I was watching there was this other YouTube video that I was watching, and there's a lady in her 90s here in North Vancouver, and she still runs. She runs marathons, and you would swear, I'll send you a link to the video afterwards, but you would swear that she was maybe 65 from the way that she spoke, the way that she ran, the light in her eyes. There was nothing that said in my what I would interpret to be 90 years old. There was nothing that said that she was 90. And running was just a piece of her life, and so it's fascinating. And yet you'll see someone that's 25 and they almost have an 80-year-old feel about them.
Yep. They're literally grayer.
Yeah. It's fascinating. You mentioned Neville saying that memory. Did you say memory is imagination?
You betcha.
So if we take that into the realm of, let's say addiction or trauma, or even those peak experiences, or a mountaintop experience or whatever, would you say that imagination or sometimes memory becomes frozen, like it's all frozen? We're using that metaphorically, I guess, but where it almost gets stuck on that incident?
I would definitely say it's when we make something special, it becomes something we get in orbit around.
Instead of making us special.
Instead of letting us notice that we're different, and
Yeah.
different again, and different again, and different again, and
Right.
different again.
And
It's funny because special is just another word for better or best, right?
right.
And different. God, I I've done. I'll be releasing the 3 calls sometime in the next week, I guess. And they've all been different, and I've all been in the same position, and I've all noticed like all kinds of different bits every time.
Yeah.
In the NLP side, something that I teach, there's match, mismatch, polarity, and novelty. Someone who runs polarity, if you say, "Oh, it's a beautiful day," and they'll go, "But it's going to rain later." No matter what, they won't agree with you. We want to get together for lunch, maybe 15 minutes later than lunch. They can't. How about 15 minutes later, right? No matter what, there's something they just can't say yes. They got to say maybe yes, kind of not.
Yeah.
Match is what most people are trained to do. Go to school, get a job, get a good car. This is yellow. 2 + 2 is 4. When the nuns did the whole thing with me, if you have 2 apples and you have 2 more apples, what do you got? And I tell them not enough to make a pie. Right? I'm hungry. I grew up poor. Right?
Yeah.
See, novelty is what people are starving for. I get you flirt a lot with novelty and from novelty.
In which way?
If I answer that, we're going to go right into match and kill it. You'll hear it on the recording. In which way? So we'll just say not there.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
So I'll usefully use a little polarity. And what we haven't bumped into is mismatch. Mismatch is my typical outfit. I wear 2 or 3 different outfits at a time. I really don't care. Mismatch is odds of me ever making the same meal twice are impossible. Because it'll all come from novelty with me, but I'll be going, it's mismatch. It's like, I wonder what a little pepper would do to this, or a little lime juice. I've made some really cool, semi-disgusting meals.
But I bet you've also come across some really cool mismatches as well.
Totally.
So I'm curious. Did you some of the whole idea of mismatch? I noticed for especially for Dream Driven Day that sometimes you would bring in three or so different concepts, and they not always were related.
Seeming, yes.
And I love that, because what I noticed is there would be everyone doing the lesson would have a slightly different experience, because they would be drawn to one of those concepts more, and plus they were making their own, connections during that process.
Yes.
Now, is that intentional? Of course.
Totally. I couldn't have done this course without doing that. So essentially, if there's essentially, you're pretty spot on. Most lessons have 3 main bits.
Yeah.
And so it's a 30-day course. So if each lesson has 3 main bits, that's
90,
3 to the 30th power of
yes.
different possibilities.
Yes.
So that's 3, 6, 9, 12. It's a lot. It just goes. I mean, like, I can't imagine 3 to the. I don't have the capacity to do math right now. So 3 to the 30th. No, 3 to the 90th power. Or is it 3 to the 30th? Anyway, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So effectively, you could do the course 3 to the 30th power. Yeah, that would be it. 3 to the 30th power times, and it'd be a different course every time.
Totally. Well, and I know some people were doing Manifesting Mastery at the same time that they were doing Dream Driven Day, and so they were getting insights that way too. So it was really, really cool. And I started getting a little bit behind in my Dream Driven Day. So then what I started to do was actually incorporate, 2. I would go back. I started with day 1, and I was doing the day that everyone else was on, and I kind of started matching those up, and it
yes, there we go.
It was a very cool experience, because then you've got 6 bits that you're kind of layering, and you're exploring and expanding, really. Yeah.
Perfectly put. The course is designed to guarantee expansion.
100, and I can testify to that 100%. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that was thinking about this, like trying to articulate what the difference is between, say, this course and, say, if you were taking, I don't know, some other, let's say, a marketing course,
Sure.
or even an Excel course. A marketing course, they're going to teach you content. Same with an Excel course. They're going to teach you steps, and they're going to teach you tips and tricks. But this is almost like the underpinning of how do you explore your life. Like, you didn't give us any, okay, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4. Instead, it's a tapestry almost, or a bunch of different threads that you can start using to create a dream-driven day. That's the other thing that I really enjoyed. And there was a distinction, because a lot of the say law of attraction, or the life coaching courses out there, it's all about, not all, but generally speaking, it's about let's fix your problems. Like, let's
change your content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this is all about, I don't know whether I'd say tweak your operating system. It's not even that. It's notice that you're the operating system. Yeah.
It's funny how, so in my world, there are three things. There's content, context, and process. Uh, Content, I've got a call with Chris. Context, it's a giveaway call that he said he wanted to share. And it's because he was in Dream Driven Day. He got one of the freebies. So that gives you a little bit more. And then there's process. Process is the invisible part, where it's like, on these calls, I haven't ever done one without video. So you and I are playing without video, and I so treasure calls without video because it just really gets us in touch with auditory. And auditory is literally like extended feeling. That's why I always talk about bathing people in this, the sound of your voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And auditory is just, it really is, it's a, hearing is the gateway to feeling kinesthetically.
Totally.
And that's and that's just a little bit of a sideways exploration into a little bit of process. It becomes people's content when they listen to it, but if they go out and they explore bathing someone with their voice, or noticing that person's voice isn't bathing me, I really don't want to hang with them.
Yeah. So true. So true. What are your thoughts about the concept of mental health? It's pretty big in today's world, and you know, a lot of the workplaces are putting in mental health practices, and you know, I myself have struggled with mental health, with you know, depression, anxiety, etc. You've had you've said you've had mental health. I don't think you've termed it that way, but you've had an event in your life with the Camp Hill riots.
I had PTSD when it wasn't sexy yet.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone that says, I have mental health issues? Or how do we, what framework do you think Neville would look at mental health through?
So you'll notice I always say now I had PTSD when it wasn't sexy.
Mm-hmm.
It pisses people off. Just like whenever I say PTSD is nothing more than the imagination out of control.
Yeah.
It really upsets some people. And here's the thing, I'm not trivializing any of it, because it's very fucking real. You know, in depression with low testosterone, the world is literally grayer.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to meet someone who's diagnosed as depressive that wears colorful clothing like the shit that I tend to wear. You know, it just doesn't happen. I wear lots of happy clothing. I wear scarves in the summertime. It's just what I do. I love color in the world.
Totally.
I think when the number one thing that I notice with mental health tends to be the defense of the diagnosis. And I really got into defending my diagnosis for a while. I was getting paid to be nuts. Not a bad thing, and I was nuts. But I also realized I'll never get a raise. I'll never get to explore in the state that I was in. You know, getting a higher wage, getting to explore more was not going to happen.
Yeah. Wow.
I was going to move to Austin, Texas many moons ago. And I decided I was going to become governor. First mayor, then governor. And I was going to do it by forming my own party. It was going to be called the Austin Dance Party. If you know about Austin, it's the live music capital of the U.S.
Right.
And so I was going to form the Austin Dance Party. And the whole premise of it was, if we're going to spend your tax dollars, we're going to dance while we're doing it. We're not going to get serious about it.
Sweet.
And as serious as people get about money, this goes right back to mental health. Mental health involves being able to have respondability to the world. You and I are having a conversation. You've had talks with people before where it was just a monologue on their side, and you got to agree. They're that fucking serious that the only room they're giving you is They definitely need some wiggle room from MM, and they definitely need some expansiveness and space from Triple D.
Yeah. Amen.
I think if I was going to go into mental health, I would teach flirting. Because humor, as much as I love humor and fun, people tend to go into jokes or puns. But flirting, especially the way we did it in Triple D, flirting for a no, invites us to discover how much terrain can you and I cover? How much can we frolic in the fucking meadow?
Yeah.
And any mental illness that I've bumped into, and I've bumped into it professionally as a cop, prison guard, old folks home employee running the restorative nursing department, I've bumped into a lot of mental health.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to lack of response or respondability and flirting.
No, I can see that. I can see that in my own life for sure. Looking back, definitely.
Me too. I had one ability to respond to, like, for 2 years. My go-to response was gun.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
all right, we don't want to play there anymore.
Yeah. 100%. You talked about people being serious about, mental health, people serious about money. One of the things that I've bumped into and has been my lived experience is being serious about religion, my beliefs. And that definitely there wasn't much wiggle room there. And I noticed the correlation between that and my mental health at the time.
Totally.
It's on another call you talked about your fascia being related or correlated or a metaphor, somewhere in that ball of wax to your beliefs.
Yes.
And I listened to that, and it was fascinating, because I know that your fascia can get almost stuck or frozen. And so a lot of people, there's a lot of massage therapists, that's almost the buzzword to, let's release your fascia, which, if related to a belief system or beliefs, how do we make beliefs more pliable and give them bounce? Was that right? Am I remembering that right?
Can I give a little tiny pre-intro for this?
Yes.
So the mind is associated with muscles. You can take your hand and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and point a finger with each one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotions are associated with your cardiovascular. I bet it can make you blush. Really? Really? You sure? I'm sure. At some point, boom, right?
Yeah.
Blush happen, right? Can't help it. That's cardiovascular. And the thing which prevents us from being a solid block of rock or a puddle is the fascia system. And the fascia is that white gooey stuff that goes around every muscle group, every muscle, every fiber, every cell. And it somewhat it's designed to hold things in place while letting them move and glide.
Mm.
Talk about a fascinating thing. And that seems to be associated with someone's beliefs. And you'll notice healthy fascia enables you to bounce. When you think of kids and they're exploring, what do I believe? A child tends to be more interested in what do I discover versus what do I believe. And they've got a lot of bounce. And someone who's 95 years old tends to have a lot of beliefs and almost no discovery going on. And they sort of are either hard like a rock or a puddle.
Not much
Or some weird ass combination of both. Oh my God.
That's true. That's true.
It seems like I have some of my best sessions, and I'm guessing almost all my imagining actually happens with a fascial stretch. And I suspect that's true for everyone, even though I don't have a whole lot of data on it. Because there's 8 billion people on the planet, minus those that got wiped out by the loogie. And I haven't met them all.
Yeah.
But I'll notice when someone will just... and Neville talks about the relief. And that relief is preceded by like how the cat holds its breath and stretches into the relief. You take a piss, it's the same thing. We did the take a piss method on philipwillfun.com for getting into the state of kindred sleep. Everybody makes it hard. Go take a piss. While you're taking a piss, you will be in a state of kindred sleep. I promise you. But before you let it out, you notice what happens. There's a little bit of a holding of the breath. Ah. and that's boom time right there.
So true. So true. And that's the exact, I mean, that's a very similar feeling, almost to the exact same feeling when you're trying to bulldoze, you're bulldozing towards a certain belief, you're like that, you're adamant that is 100% true, something is, and then you just get a different feeling for something or a different explanation, and all of a sudden that just collapses. Then there's that relief. There's like a different way of seeing it because there was so much tension that this one thing, my way of looking at it, had to be right. When it's not right anymore, or when a different perspective gets introduced, wow, the space that creates is phenomenal.
The significance of fascia has only been, let's say, discovered in the past 20, 30, 50 years, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems one of the reasons why is whenever we started dissecting humans, not me personally, even though I'd love to go to a human dissection, I think it'd be fascinating. But when we started dissecting humans, we started cutting along the fascial lines. so it's like, yeah, we didn't want to cut the muscles, so we cut the fascia. It's like, oh, isn't this convenient? They gave us lines to follow to cut things with, or to cut to separate things from.
Right.
Oh my God, and it's only been in the past decade or two that treating fascia, exploring fascia, has actually picked up momentum and been considered scientific. Oh my God. And it's the same with belief, if you think about it. Governments want to govern with laws religion wants to govern with whatever we want to call their things. You know, the central precepts of Catholicism, for example, what I was raised with. This is the reality. We're telling you what it is. All that versus little kids have healthy fascial systems, not because they're young, but because they bounce and move and skip, and you can't make them walk right. They're all over the place. Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true.
They're always flirting with their bodies. And when you get old, you try not to fall down. I have to defend my body, protect it.
Totally. And how cool that, or how that correlates with this is what I believe, and I'm sticking to it until I'm dead.
I'm sticking to it. Yeah. So the reason you can't move your legs, sir, is that those muscles have pretty much stuck together. Yeah, that's right.
Wow. Yeah. So you come from a religious background too, right?
Sure.
You grew up in
12 years of Catholic school.
yes. So when you then bumped into Neville, how was that transition going from, you know, be the what the nuns told you or what you were taught was the truth, and then you discover Neville, and then he has all of this, you know, a different way of seeing reality and seeing the Bible. That must have been, I know for me that there was definitely a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a war that I had to go through to sort through stuff. Did you have a similar thing?
You know, it's interesting. So the first time I bumped into Neville, I would have been about 12. I
Yeah.
was trying to rebel against the church, which means I still believed it, but didn't want to believe it and wanted to believe something else. And when I came across Neville and I noticed he's quoted a lot of scripture, the book ended up in the trash. The second time was sometime in my early 20s. I joined Amway. And I was considering religion at the time. I mean, I had PTSD going on, so I was checking out different, primarily Christian-based religions.
Yep.
The Pentecostal thing, the Church of Christ, so on and so forth. I read Neville a little bit back then because my upline gave him to me. And it's like, okay, I got some gold, but I'm still not thrilled.
Yeah.
But it was entertaining. And there's this thing called The Promise, which was weird, but anyway.
Yeah.
And then the third time, I was experiencing the events of The Promise and I was really reading deep on Hinduism at the time and having a lot of dreams with Hindu gods in them and stuff.
Cool.
And so when the events of The Promise started happening, the first thing I noticed was, oh, there are these people that write about the Kundalini awakening and so on, but the way most of them are going, I'm not real interested in. But then there was that weird guy, Godward or something.
Yeah.
And so I went back into Neville at that point. And it's funny because Neville got me back into Christian scripture. And and at that point, it's like, all right, I'll run with this. It fits my experience. And it just helped me look at scripture and go, wow, okay, it really is. It's the personal handbook, you know?
Totally. Yeah. Same sort of experience here, in that the more that I saw what Neville was saying, and the more that I read, and the more then that I compared that. Like, I went to Bible college for 4 years and was a pastor of a Baptist church for a few years, and so I was neck deep, right? And fast forward a few more years, Neville, yeah, that the Neville's interpretation of things, or his take on things, really resonated. But I did have felt like I had some junk that I needed to move through in order to actually really get what Neville was saying and really, really embrace it. And it resonated, but I guess I had that junk in the back of my mind, if that makes any sense.
Well, you can't put new wine in old wineskins. You know,
100%.
you gotta empty the teacup.
That's right.
And we all get to whether it's even even on just the manifesting technology side. You'll notice in the Law of Attraction by Neville Goddard group, I'm always hounding people whenever they bring up vibration, alignment. Speak it, watch your words. It's like, fuck, man, no.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but that works for me. Well, you think that works for you? Been there, but I'm gonna invite you to peek under the hood a little differently. While you're here. That shit ain't gonna fly, and I'm gonna invite you to discover something about you.
Yeah.
And I think in all ways, it's like I've been preaching for 10 years now that the system is screwed. The system as in education, the system as in work. And it's like almost nobody needs to actually go to an office that works in an office. So why not do it from home?
Totally.
In Victoria, I'm not allowed to have a plastic bag in the grocery store. We've banned plastic bags here because we're going to save the world. And meanwhile, people are still driving to work. It's like it should be against the law to go to work. If you can work from home, you should be required to work from home. Just to spend 2 hours in traffic a day to, you want to change the world, eliminate that.
Totally.
and same thing with education. The education system is broken. And it's like, I see this loogie thing as a great opportunity for people to notice, this whole thing of, getting a 2-year degree doesn't work, a 4-year degree doesn't work. You got to get your master's or a double doctorate to get ahead. It's like, nobody should go into debt like that and waste 10 years when they can really dive in and do what they love without all that. But to me, it's all the same thing. It's like, let's evaluate the system. Let's notice what's really working, what really matters, and eliminate what doesn't, because it doesn't matter.
Totally. And all of those, the unfortunate thing, or maybe not unfortunate, but all of those systems are so dependent on each other that it's almost like you'd need to haul the whole works down in order and start fresh.
It just might be what's happening.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. We may claw our way back up to it as a culture, but it's like, God, how many people are going to totally... I've talked to hundreds of people since this thing kicked off that have told me the work that you and I are discussing has so changed their lives because they're going, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
I'm doing something different. I'm doing something different not only for me, but for my kids. I want them to see that they don't have to buy the dumb shit.
Totally. I do think that that's going to happen, that individual choice where people sort of see, oh, that wasn't working. Life was not working. You want to return to something that wasn't working, and that's where the difference comes in. We don't need something necessarily better or even to go back to normal. Let's just we do something different.
Let's create something different.
Exactly. A different system, a system that works. And you're all about systems that work, aren't you?
Big time.
Yeah.
So we got about 5 minutes. And what do you want to toss out? And feel free to share anything. If you got a project that you want people to know about.
Sure.
They've had an hour to fall in love with you and to be bathed by your voice. Is there anything that you want to let them know that you're up to that you'd want people to find you about? If not, I don't know. I should have prepped you on this. But
no, it's all good. I am up to I've started a business which is called outgrowing beliefs, and probably from the theme of the call, there's a lot of stuff around beliefs and religion, and that's been my experience. And you've heard a little bits and snippets of my life, and I want to help people that come from that background where if their religion no longer fits, if they're doubting, or if they're a so-called or self-professed black sheep or heretic or religious contrarian or whatever someone might title themselves, but they're struggling to move past that religious thinking, those beliefs of hell or Satan, or the inerrancy of scripture, or whatever it is that's keeping them from exploring. I feel like I'm called to help them work through that, sort through that, and so I've created a business around that. I can share my web link if you
Yep.
like.
Sure. I was just going to say, are you on Facebook? You got a web page? What's the easiest way for them to find you?
Easiest way to find me and reach out to me is just go to my website, which is outgrowingbeliefs.com. That's outgrowingbeliefs.com. And from there's links to Instagram and a Facebook page and whatnot. But feel free to reach out to me there.
Cool.
Definitely.
There's a lady in your neck of the woods that I've done some interviews with that you really need to talk to. She does a radio show.
Perfect. Would love it.
So, yeah, I get that. You and her would hit it off exceptionally well. So I'll make sure to get you her details.
That's great. That's great, 20. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
This has been very lovely.
My absolute pleasure. So what are you doing today? It's your evening.
It's my evening, yeah. Well, I went for a run, and earlier today, that seems to be...
And this 95-year-old woman blew past you, yes?
She probably would have, and I would have asked her to put me on her shoulders, so I could have taken over a little bit of a rest. But goodness, yeah, she's quite something. I'll send you the link to that. She's a lovely, yeah.
Please do.
No, for the rest of the evening, I think I'm winding down. Probably go and sit outside on my porch, drink some hot chocolate, and listen to the ravens fight it out over the last couple of cherries on the cherry tree.
I love that I am so clueless. I didn't know if you were going to talk about sports or actual birds when you said ravens.
Oh, definitely more nature than sports related. Definitely.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, 20. Thank you very, very much. Say hi to Victoria, please.
I will. I love you, buddy.
Love you too. See ya.